Alright, what's going on, guys? In this video, we're going over the basics of Adobe Illustrator on the iPad. I'm probably going to break this video up into two parts because I want to show a lot of different techniques, but my goal is that I want to vectorize a drawing that I've been doing in Procreate. I've been teaching Procreate since around August now, and my students have been getting pretty good at Procreate, but now they're showing a lot of hesitation to learn any vector software whatsoever because they can't just doodle with the pen, with the brushes, and it's a whole different kind of drawing. So let's translate our process a little bit. Adobe Illustrator on the iPad is still pretty new, so I'm still learning some of the tools, and it doesn't have all of the tools that it does have on the computer version, but it's got the basics, and that's all we need. So I'm going to make a new document. I'm going to work at a screen size at 2048 pixels by 2048 pixels, though because it's a vector, if I ever need it to be bigger, I won't be too worried about it being a small file size. Let's go ahead and create that. I'm going to start by, on my initial layer, my layer 1, I will import that photo as a reference, and I'm going to pressing and holding this button. There's this really cool button in Adobe Illustrator. A lot of Adobe apps have this. It's basically the shift key. I put it down in the bottom left so I can press it with my non-dominant thumb. But when I press and hold the button, I can scale like without losing the proportions. It's a nifty little button that we'll be using later. I'm going to go ahead and lock that, and I'm going to lock that layer, and I'm going to make a new layer to start off. So first things first, in Procreate we're able to set some color palettes. I'm going to create a color palette in Adobe Illustrator using the eyedropper tool. In the bottom left I've got my fill color and my stroke color. With my fill color, if I just grab the eyedropper tool and then click and drag it onto a color, I can press the plus button down in swatches. Let's turn my stylus on. I can press the plus button down in swatches, and now I have a swatch of that color. So eyedropper tool, hover over a color, plus button, and grab that swatch. So there's my solid blue, there's my shadow blue. Let's do my my solid yellow, plus button. Let's do my shadow yellow, plus button. I think those are the basics that I'll use today. I can grab my background color if I really wanted. Cool. Now let's get into it. Let's start with some cool shape building tricks with the crystal ball. So again, I'm on a new layer, I'm on a fresh layer. Let's keep our layers organized, right? And I'll grab in my shape menu, my shape tools. Let's grab the circle. Now when I click and drag with the circle, it creates an ellipse. If I press and hold that button like so, it keeps it a perfect circle, easily done. Let's go ahead and set that color to be our basic blue. Now, whoops, to create the shadow, I undo with just a 2-finger press. Most iPad apps do that now. I'm going to duplicate the circle. The duplicate button, when I have an object selected, is down in this bottom menu. I see the trash can, I see the duplicate button right here. If I just click and drag when I have that selected, it's kind of like alt dragging on a computer. It's really easy, it's really nifty. So I'm going to duplicate it 3 times, so I have 3 circles. Now what I do here is I can overlap them like so. Do you see that overlap? Now I've got this crescent shape that's formed by the overlap. Selecting them both, I'm going to use what used to be called the Pathfinder option. I think they're just calling it the shape builder now. It's basically the Boolean operations in any other software. And I can combine those 2 shapes, or I could subtract one from the other, or I can start dividing them up. I'm going to press minus front, so I create that crescent moon shape. Now, Illustrator on the iPad right now, it doesn't apply that effect. Right now it's still 2 circles. If I know that I don't need to undo this ever in the future, I can just convert that to a path right now, and that's what I'm going to do, convert the path. So now I've got that crescent moon shape. I'll go ahead and make that my shadow. And I can overlap these. If one is on front of the other, I could use my stack right here. I could click and drag this stack button and rearrange the layers, but let's go ahead and snap those together. Let's group that. Press the group button right here. And now that means that after I group it, if I just select one, it selects them both at the same time. Let's do the base. The base I want to do some cool tricks with, still with that shape builder. If I select an ellipse for my base, let's make that my bright yellow. And let's position that in the center. Let's scale it first. Now let's position it in the center. If you don't have the pink smart guides turned on, turn those on. In my precision menu over here, I have smart guides turned on at near almost all times, along with snapping. It just makes my life so much easier. So I've got that, and then let's go ahead and build that rectangle, right? Let's grab my rectangle tool. build a rectangle. Grab my selection, change that a little bit. Let's make it dark yellow in this golden color. Now what I can do is I can grab my direct selection tool, which is that second arrow from the top. That lets me click on individual anchor points. And if I tap on an anchor point, I tap once, and then I can click and drag it again and change where it goes. So I'm going to create a little bit of a trapezoid shape now. Now, if I just tap on the whole shape, I see those little inside circles. That lets me round the corners of it. And now I've got that shape happening. Let's go ahead and line that up. And what I did in the drawing is I created this little bit of a separation. Now let me show you a trick to do that. Let me show you a trick to subtract an outline or a stroke from the rest of the shapes. If I select this and create a stroke, let's just do a dark color because I'm going to delete it later. Increase my stroke size. First things first, I'm going to outline the stroke. Check this out. If I go to my object menu over here, I can create stroke outline. And what that did, if I ungroup it, is it created a whole separate shape from the stroke. Pretty handy. Because now what I can do is I can select all of these. And I can use in my shape builder, I can click divide all. And what that's going to do, check this out. If I click divide all, is it cuts everything to cut lines on the overlap. So now if I ungroup it, ungroup button right here. Look, so many shapes. If I ungroup it, I can just go through and delete the blue ones. I can just delete the stroke and create that separation. Sometimes it gets a little weird, like you can see there's like little artifacts in here that I can just go through and select and get rid of and clean up. A little bit of detail work, but not a big deal. Delete all those. And that's really the basics of it, right? I think after that I just gotta add the highlight, which is just a simple bam, bam. And then yeah, on that side too, these little artifacts, that's no big deal. Let's create my highlight with just another ellipse. Make that my bright blue color. Go ahead and select one. Yeah, let's go ahead and eyedropper that bright blue color. Boom. Rotate it with the selection tool. And I've got my crystal ball. Let's go ahead and select everything and group it. Scale it down. Put it in the corner. Oh, there's some even more artifacts that I can just delete and ignore later. And there's the start of it. I think the next shape, if I open up my layers, is lock that one, make a new layer. Let's do the 20-sided die next. The 20-sided die is a hexagon. If I zoom in on my drawing, it's a crude drawing, freehanding. I'm a little rough with freehanding on an iPad. But cool thing about Illustrator is I've got perfect geometry. But there's no hexagon tool. If I grab the triangle one though, I drag a triangle. Let's go ahead and press the button down so it's a perfect triangle. After I make a triangle or any polygon, there's that little up and down arrow slider right here. And if I click and drag that, I can change the amount of sides it has. So there's a perfect hexagon. If I rotate it while holding the button, I can rotate it at perfect angles, and boom, I've got a hexagon. Let's go ahead and give that a base color. I'll give it a dark blue stroke. And I'm going to increase the stroke size right down here. 23 is good. Let's go ahead and make the inside. The inside is a triangle, so I will go ahead and make another shape, rotate it, put it in the center, use my smart guides there. Now, let's do those lines. I can make individual rectangles really thin. That's obnoxious. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead is with my pencil tool. The pencil tool is interesting. Check this out. If I draw a shape with the pencil tool, you see that it draws in a stroke. What I mean by that is it's drawing the stroke outline and then using my colors in the bottom left is like to determine the fill. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to give it no fill with that red slash, no fill. And then just press and hold the button to draw a straight line. See how I did that? I'm going to undo that, press and hold the button first, and then just draw a straight line. Easy. Now I can move that line around. Grab my direct selection tool to start aligning up individual points. So let's put this in the center first. Center it, and then grab my direct selection tool and, whoops, You gotta tap on the anchor point once and then tap again to drag it. But there I go. Camera fails, fixed it. All right, so what I'm gonna do now with this line is I'm gonna duplicate this line. Check this out, duplicate the line, grab the anchor point tool, select one of the anchor points and drag it somewhere else. And that's gonna be my process for this whole thing, right? Just arrow, like regular selection tool, duplicate it, anchor point tool, and move one of the anchor points somewhere else. You guys don't need to watch this whole thing. Let's fast forward a little bit. And just like that, once I zoom out, group it, I have the D20. All right, so this video's already gotten pretty long. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause there and pick up in a part 2. We're going to use the brush tool and the pen tool to create a little bit more organic shaped drawings. But thank you for watching part 1 on the basics of Illustrator.